I am so excited for this conversation. I've introduced my guest, and so you know all her incredible credentials, all the amazing professional things she's done in the world. If you are in the online space at all, you would absolutely know Jenn Pike to be like, she is at the forefront of women's health and hormones and balanced living. And that's probably what initially drew me to Jenn as a human. But I think what's really kept me in your world, Jenn, and has really allowed me to develop what I would call a friendship with you is really how I've watched you evolve behind the scenes. And I've said this to you before. When I think about the amazing women I've met in the online space, the amazing friendships I've made in the past few years in the online space, you are someone that comes to mind immediately when I think about a woman that has always held space very safely for me, and I think for so many other women. And I think there's something about the way that you choose to live out loud, and to really show up with all of who you are. And in some ways, it's almost difficult to distinguish the professional Jenn from the personal Jenn. And I think that's part of your beauty and your magic, and what makes you, even at this level of your career, your success, how much you've grown and scaled, what makes you so relatable. And I know there are people in your DMs all day, every day, right? Like the fact that people still are DMing you, myself included, like the fact that, and I know it's you responding, the fact that you are still having those intimate conversations behind the scenes with your community, I think is remarkable. And it really speaks to your leadership. And so the conversation I really want to have with you today is the woman beyond the practice, right? Like who is she? How did she learn to lead in this way? And who is she becoming?
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely here for the conversation. I'm so happy that you asked me to come on. And, you know, it has been, evolution is the best way to describe it. And, you know, for a long time in the beginning, and I think this is so common for us as entrepreneurs, is you're really taught that everything has to fit in a box, right? So you have like your niche. So that's like what you focus on. You have your avatar client, which is who you're speaking to. You have the hat you have to wear when you are showing up to attract and bring people into your company, the hat you have to wear when you're running the company. Then all the other hats of being a woman, a partner, a mother, you know, a sister, a friend, whatever it may be. And in the beginning, I really tried to follow that flow and put myself inside those boxes, and it wiped me out. It was exhausting, and it always felt disingenuous, and it felt harder for me to try to be this version of myself in one moment, in one situation, when I had all these other ideas and these thoughts and these visions and these feelings and ways that I wanted to express and for it to come through. And I finally it got so uncomfortable in my body. Like every decision I make literally comes from a place of feeling and emotion first. It doesn't happen for me from the outside in. So a lot of people can look at me from the outside and be like, oh, she's a rebel. She always has to do things her own way. Like she can never just follow the rules. And that's actually not what's happening. And it's definitely not on purpose. And it's not intentional for it to be that way. But for me, I can't live myself from the outside in, which means I can't be told, these are the rules. This is the way you have to do it. And it's the only way. I'm not built like that.
So I'm going to say it right now. I should have said it off the bat. I'm probably going to interrupt you so many times today because when you speak, there's so much gold in what you say, and I don't want to miss these things. So I have a question for you. Was there ever a time where as an entrepreneur, you felt like you had to fit in the box?
Oh, 100%. And there still continues to be. I don't know a human being who can move through life and never feel that, especially when we are so connected to devices where literally every 10 to 30 seconds, you're receiving a different message. an inspiration, a direction, this like, is this message for me? And if it is, then I'm supposed to do that. And look at her over here being successful. And if this is the way that she's modeling herself and she's built it, well, I should probably try to slide into her box and see if I can fit this on, for my own self. So it's an everyday feeling that happens, but that I always have to come back to, is that true for me? How does that actually feel? If I try to talk like someone else, if I try to use the same copy, if I try to use the same, templates, verbiage, I can't, because it literally just feels like, ugh. And then what I've recognized in business is when I try and do those things, because I have in the past, I immediately create constriction. I stop the flow of income. I stop the flow of impact. The message gets muddled. It doesn't land as well with people. I don't get the engagement or the type of traction that I'm looking for as to when I just free flow.
Was there like, can you pinpoint for yourself, was there a marked moment on your journey where you felt like you sort of hit this fork in the road?
It's when I owned my studio in person. And the gift of that was I had the privilege of sitting at the front of that room in front of dozens of women every single day from all walks of life, all showing up for a different need and intention and desire. And it was in these moments that I realized there's not one message and one version that's going to hit every woman the same, because these are all unique, incredible women sitting in front of me. And if I really want to develop a relationship with these women, which I believe when we show up to something like a class, when we continue to work with a coach, it's not because of the product, the service, the description, it is the relationship. There is something there that is like, there's this magnetism that's drawing it in. And for women, what I've discovered it is when we feel seen, when we feel heard, when we feel validated, when we feel safe. And so I stopped trying to teach my classes from this place of like, hi, I am the yoga instructor and I am going to move you through yoga, or I'm going to move you through Pilates, instead of like, welcome. Where's everyone at today? How are you feeling? And I would always start my classes in this very somatic way, where I had a lot of rhythm of their movement in the body. And I could just witness and through watching and also closing my eyes of like, okay, they're all moving a little slow and trepidatious today. All right, the vibe we need to create is this, or wow, they're like fiery and spicy today. We need to move into that. Or it feels heavy today. I can feel and hear the depth of their breath. I see tears in some of the breath work we're doing. We need to steer it this way. And then in that, I really started to just have conversation at the front of the room, sharing my own stories, my own struggles. Because I think for a lot of us, like, we want to know that the people that we're connecting with are human beings just like us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it was in those moments for me that I found myself. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is like, for me, this is how I'm going to connect, allow myself to be me and stop wearing all the different hats and just let Jenn show up. And that was like the metamorphic moment where that's what I started to do. Amazing.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about the audacious woman. Because again, as someone who, has known you and has sort of been in spaces with you, and as someone who genuinely follows your work, watching this part of you emerge was beautiful, and when I saw the emergence of the audacious woman, it was like, of course, that's where she's going. Of course, that's where her journey is taking her. Like, it was like, it felt like a familiar part of Jenn that I was witnessing. So I'd love for you to take us through that process, like behind the scenes, what was happening for you?
Well, again, it started many, many years ago. I had these core words, these core desired feelings on the wall of my studio that I put up there in 2012. And one of the words was audacity. And I can remember some women being like, oh, that's like really bold to put up there, like audacity, like you have the audacity to put that up there, kind of like, who are you? And I was like, oh, like that wasn't the energy and vibe I got from it. To me, like audacity and being audacious was being courageous and bold, but in like the most beautiful, loving way. And in a way that you really inspire other women to have, you know, the ability to do that. And so there was something about that word that I was always attracted to, but slightly afraid of, because there is this energy of like audaciousness, and that's showy, that's ego, that's like putting it out there. And as women, we're taught to do the total opposite of that, right? Like, how dare you, you know, lead and show in this way. And so it was just a word on the wall for a long time. And as my practice continued to grow, as I sold the studio, grew the practice, I really hit my stride in the level and quality of work I was putting out into the world for women's health and hormones. I knew I was in that zone. And the deeper I got into it, I was starting to get these whispers of, you know, like, your journey on this path it's coming to a different kind of fork in the road, where I had to choose, am I going to continue to be a practitioner, or am I going to move more into a mentorship role? And for me, it was, I love working with clients. I love helping individuals, but I really am at a time now where I'm witnessing so many practitioners struggle with not having successful practices, with bottlenecks of energetic time management, their own energy, whatever it may be. And I sit back and I'm like, I know I have a lot to offer that woman in practice, to help her work on the woman that she is, not all of the back end details of the business. And so there was this part of me where I was like, oh, that feels audacious to leave this part of my clinical practice, to hire on and mentor other people to teach the work that I've created, and to almost, I don't want to say, it's funny, the word lose is coming up, but that's not what it is. Like, shift my identity. I've always been known as a practitioner. And that's very easy for me to do and be successful there, but it isn't filling me up in the same way anymore that is waking up this audacious woman. And so it was having the audacity and the courage to publicly declare and say, I want to offer and create something else and something more. And when I first put the audacious woman out there, my mentorship, I really didn't know what all the ingredients were going to be. I knew what I wanted the feeling to be. And so I led with the feeling and said, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to take, 10 women in with me for the next 10 months. And that was it. It was full.
Yeah.
I didn't do a launch. I didn't do any of that. I just spoke about what it was. I just did another round. Same thing. I didn't do a launch. I have another group of women in. Now it's evolved into the Audacity sessions and into really creating this space for women to wake up and move into it there. But it is scary. It's scary because my identity in the industry is as a health and hormone expert for women. My identity is as a practitioner. My identity is not as, a business mentor, as a coach. And so there is that energy again of like, sliding inside that box, reinventing yourself. And the audacious woman is honestly, Shamila, it is the evolution of me. And I know I'm not the only woman who's on this journey of evolution or ascension or waking up to her divine feminine, feeling more comfortable in who she is, and then literally birthing new things from that place. And I'm at a time in my life, I am 42. I want to spend as much time as possible with other women who are as lit up and is excited about being audacious enough to live the life she was meant to as me. I want to spend time with those women.
I love that. I love that. There's so much, we've talked about this. There's so much about, your journey that resonates with my own journey. We've talked about this identity piece as practitioners, and then really feeling a call to step into a different role of leadership. Because I think when you're a practitioner, you're still leading.
Yeah.
Right. You're still leading in a capacity, and you've trained practitioners and you're still leading there. And then there is this different iteration, I would say, I think, of leadership that is emerging. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it took for you to allow yourself, give yourself permission, find the courage. I don't know the language that you would put to it. So I don't want to put my own to it, but what did you do to allow yourself to step out of the one identity and step into a new iteration?
So I always know long before I do something that something is coming, that something's brewing. I can always feel it in my body. Again, my body is the way. You know, it's like, I don't have to sit in stillness and meditate in order to receive the message. So often, like in human design, as a projector, we'll talk about it as like receiving the invitation. Many of the invitations for me in my life will show up in a physical way. So what was starting to happen is I was recognizing that I was starting to get overwhelmed by the workload of something that at one time is what got me up out of bed every day and lit me up so much. And I was like, interesting. Why am I starting to feel bitter or exhausted from the thing that I actually love so much? I started to notice that. And then for me, I was just daydreaming and journaling and writing all the time about things that had nothing to do with women's health and hormones, that had to do with the woman, that had to do with the energy, the vibe. Like, if we're really here to co-create, which I believe we are here to co-create and co-design the life we're meant to live. And I believe as women, it's like, we think that we either have to go all in and be like the best mom, or all in and be the best business owner, all in and be like the most fit version of ourselves, or what most of us will tend to do is like, I have to be the best in all of those categories. And to me, it's like we end up losing sight of who we are. And so I was starting to lose sight of what I really desired because I was delivering what people wanted me to deliver. I was responding to the request, which is not an invitation. A request is not an invitation, right? It was like, I need more information from you, Jen, about my hormones, my thyroid, my adrenals. Fix me, help me, heal me. I need you. Those were the types of things that were starting to come in. And I was like, oh, whoa, that is like, that's a lot of responsibility. And if I really were to ask myself, what do I desire and need? I need the woman behind the scenes, which is me. I need her to be at her most vital and her most vibrant.
Yes. Are you incorporating women's like hormonal health into your mentorship?
Into the audacious. Yeah. And that is it, because for me, I firmly believe the success and vitality of a business, the impact, the income, the company comes down to the well-being of the woman behind the company. So if you yourself are exhausted, you're fried, your nervous system is not intact any longer, you are deficient, you have different hormonal imbalances going on, that is going to reflect and show up in your company at some point. If it's not right now, it will at some point. So we talk so much about, words like resiliency. Well, for us as women, it's about sustainability. It is about, and regenerative. This is why I love cycle syncing in the seasons for women so much, is because you can't be on and be in this building, like, look at me, come to me energy all the time. Yes. The winter is so important for us, right? Like that pulling back. And that's really, this period of time for me has been the behind the scenes. And I am just waking up from my winter. It's interesting. It's like, I don't even feel like I've gotten started.
Right. So where does it feel like, say more about that? Like, where are you at personally on this professional journey?
So clinically, in the practice sense, I've never been happier than where things are right now, because I have built a beautiful team of, women and other functional medicine practitioners who are just brilliant at what they do. And I have so much trust in the support they create for the women who come into the Hormone Project. And I coach that entire program. So I'm the head facilitator of that. So I still get to have my hands in it, and I get to do what I love, which is teach. And so that's wonderful. Shifting into the audacious woman, starting to bring in more of the business mentorship and supporting female entrepreneurs. I literally feel like that is the place where I feel like I haven't even started. I feel like what I've been doing is just having this conversation of like, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I want to offer. I've been beta sampling it with these beautiful groups of women who have joined me. And I feel like I am slowly building up that strength of what the true version of it is. So I feel like I just came out of this very long winter of doing the behind the scenes work on myself, of getting confident enough to change my message. That's the scariest thing when you make a shift in direction in your business.
Yeah.
It's really scary, and we'll tend to go back to our old patterns. So it's even like I have two separate platforms now for Jenn Pike, which is Hormone Project, Synced and all that. And then I have the Audacious Woman. I've been doing nothing on the Audacious Woman platform because it's small right now. She's just been born. And I keep going back to the Jenn Pike community. They're following me there for the hormones and the health and that. They're not necessarily the Audacious Woman. But it's the, do you know what I'm saying of that?
I
so it's
do.
like, so
Yes.
I keep going over there and then I'm like, oh, wait a second. I'm supposed to be.
Right.
So I'm trying to cultivate and figure out this way where I can stay in this energy of do less while building the momentum. And I'm not talking to every woman with this brand and this version of myself. And that I think is getting the clarity piece is I'm talking to a very specific woman, and she listening to this already knows this is her.
Yes, absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And I'm listening to you. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. And, you know, for my listeners, if you don't know who Jenn, I mean, go look at her look her up on Instagram, have a look at the platforms, but you've built this really loyal following as the hormone expert. You have lots of women listening to you.
Yeah.
And in conversation with you, and just right there with everything that you're doing. So I can imagine, like only imagine how difficult that must feel to kind of shift over here to this new space that you're just beginning to create.
Yeah.
Right. The energy must feel so different.
Oh, it's totally different. And I want to be like so loving and respectful of that community that I've created, because that community is not going anywhere. The work we do isn't going anywhere. My energy is just moving in a slightly different direction. And it's also, you know, I was part of a couple of business masterminds and business mentorships where my role was to come in and to support this side of the woman that in business we oftentimes neglect and we put on the back burner so that we can get, you know, the funnel created, the opt-ins created to get our, you know, advertising, like all of that, like the details, like the business minutia, which is so important. But I feel like there's this big gap in the world of business for women where that is the overarching theme and energy and focus. And when it doesn't work, when we put all that work into it, we create our program, we do our launch, we're hosting our webinars. And if we feel like we're not getting the traction, the engagement, the numbers, that the money that we desire, the amount of people we want to sign up, we keep going back and retweaking the same thing. Well, maybe I need to put this much money behind this ad spend. Maybe the graphic is different. Maybe the copy has to change. And sometimes that can be it. But maybe it has nothing to do with any of that. And this is more about what the hell is going on with you. And that's where we need to shift the energy and the focus so that we reignite that flame, we get the fire starter in you woken up again, and that we can align you to your message. And because when you're trying to speak to something, if you're flat about it, or you're like, oh God, like I'm so over it, I don't even want to sell this thing, people pick up on that. Again, they're buying energy, right? They're buying emotion. It's crazy. So I sit back and I watch this, and this is what's been so cool for this last, like, I'd say 6 to 8 months solidly, is I've really been a steward of, I've just been noticing what's happening. There's very polarizing energy in the industries right now. So in the health and wellness space, where we're literally changing people's health and life forever, we are helping them overcome autoimmune conditions, rebalance their system, all of that. There is such a restrictive mentality around what someone's willing to spend. And if it's not covered by insurance, it's not this and that, then, you know, they'll cherry pick what they will and won't do for literally the one body they get for the rest of their life.
Right.
And if they're not vibrant in that body, how will you have all the other things you desire? And then the polarizing part of that is then you have industries that are selling emotion, feeling, energetics, whatever it may be, rising to this part of you as a woman, all of that. and that are charging literally 10 times the amount of money, and women are handing it over left, right, and center. So right there, right there, as you sit back and you witness, I sit there and go, holy shit.
Yep.
The mentality where we're sitting at in this cycle, you know this, you're the author of The Emotionally Intelligent Woman. There is something living within us where if we don't feel like we have the ability to go and create the consistent change to improve our thyroid health, our sex hormones, move through perimenopause and menopause with ease, shift our body composition, whatever it may be, we don't believe that we have the ability to do that because we're going to have to create the change. But then you have someone that is putting out there the energy of how life could be and the luxury and all this and that. And you see that as a woman and you're like, well, damn, I am attracted to that. I want that. If I just put myself in that person's sphere through osmosis and manifestation, I am going to bring that in. And all of a sudden money is no question.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so fascinating to me. And that has gotten me very curious about it. Because that is very bold and audacious.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is.
Right.
It is.
So it's really, so I have not actually, to be honest, figured out what my exact way is that I am leading forward with how I'm communicating the audacious woman, other than having conversations like this and sharing for me what I create inside of this container and really the woman that I want to work with and what I want to support her on.
Yes, I absolutely hear, and everything you're saying just resonates so deeply. And I think there are a lot of us in the online space that are feeling this shift, whether we can put our finger on it or not, right? Whether we can articulate it as clearly as you just did. I think there are so many of us that are really feeling this shift and this draw towards, I was talking with my audience earlier today about, I've always led from a very science-based perspective, which you probably have as well for a very, very long time. And I appreciate it and love it and don't discount it for a second. And I can feel internally for me, as well as the women that I'm mentoring, is we're ready to now step beyond the edges of science and step into something that's beyond that, and
it's our soul, right? Like, this is it. It's like, that was one of the biggest things that changed in my life for me as somebody running a business. And I've talked a lot about this on my podcast, like in the early days of business. I mean, oh my gosh, like it was a struggle. And, we hit 7 figures last year and it was not a struggle. And the biggest difference is it wasn't our copy, our graphics, all those things. It was the energy behind it. And that energy started with me. And so it was recognizing that the studies, the data, the science, the information, they're not going anywhere. The difference was the way in which I was communicating it, the space I was creating around it. And when I started to feel myself getting tired and overwhelmed, and I was like, for me, it comes down to things like I was sighing a lot. Like I was like, and my husband would pick up on it and I could feel it. And I was hearing myself say things like, I'm so tired. But then my brain was like, but I'm not tired physically. I can still go work out. I'm not, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And it was like, my soul was exhausted.
Yes.
And part of her exhaustion was, I've been really craving to have these kind of conversations with women for so long about the emotion, about the connection. I've been involved since, literally since I can remember. And my parents always say this too, like I was always curious and asking the bigger questions. So when I was younger, I would look to like astrology, and then it was like the Enneagram and, the Strength Finders and the Colby Index and like, all of those things. And more recently, it has been looking at human design. And I'm fascinated by the energetic blueprint of who we are as individuals. I don't hang my hat on it. I don't like, oh, you're this, so then you only can live your life in accordance with that. But I feel like some of that information is what many of us are missing. Right. And in my industry, like everybody wants the test. I want the blood test. I want the thyroid test. I want the Dutch test. I want the GI. And then what we're taught is, okay, when you get the test, now the results are going to explain everything that is going on, right? In your life. And that's not true. The results give us more opportunity for more question. And sometimes where we don't see what we're looking for is that those black and white tests are never going to explain to you the energy of what is happening in your body. What makes you who you are, why you respond this way and not this way. And so I've been threading some of that human design in as I've been going deeper, and I'm a student of it. And that's been really fascinating to pull in as well.
I'm glad, I asked you if we could go there today. So let's talk a little bit then about this energetic shift that you have been making and how human design has really helped you do some of that.
Yeah. So, without even realizing that I was doing it, if I go back almost 5 years ago when I started, so I've tracked my cycle since I was 17 and I'm 42. So literally it's been like a lifetime. And that gave me a lot of awareness and connection. And about 5-ish years ago, I really decided that I was going to start to live in accordance with where I was at in my cycle. 4 different phases. I started to bring more of the moon energy in the seasons. Couple years ago, I had somebody on my team at the time who was like, oh my gosh, Jen, I have to introduce you to this thing called human design. Have you ever heard about it? And I was like, no, I have no idea what it is. And she's like, okay, I'm just learning. Let me do a reading on you. I'm going to send you my bodygraph.com, fill in your birthday, all of that. So I get this chart back. I do not understand this chart at all.
It's pretty intense.
It is. And there's arrows going in different directions, and then different centers that are, defined and undefined, and channels and gates. And I get told I'm a projector. And I was like, oh, and in my mind, when I heard projector, I was like, well, that makes sense. Cause I talk with my hands and I project and I put stuff out in the world. Come to realize, and oh my gosh, I can't tell you the relief I had learning about what it is to be a project, because I was like, there I am. Oh my gosh, this makes so much sense.
Right.
And what I learned is going through all of these, that I had been living most of my life in business. I had been trying to put myself in all these boxes, following all the rules and the templates of the industry, like I was a manifesting generator.
Right. So I'm a projector as well. I don't know if you remember we had this.
Yeah.
We're both like,
you are, I think, authority. Oh, you're emotional authority as well.
Oh, you're not.
I'm emotional.
So am I.
Yeah. 1-3.
No, 6-2.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'm a 1-3. But I was living most of my life and building my career as a Manny Jen. I had my hands in a million different pots. I was like doing umpteen different things, which, because I loved all of them, I was like, I got this. But then I would burn out, and I would burn out hard. Right. And I just thought that was part of what happened. I'm a mom. Like, I gave myself all those, I gaslit myself is what I did. And I just bypassed it. That's just what you're supposed to feel. And then when I discovered human design, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And even as a projector, how there's periods of time where you can really show up and rise and do that. And then you need to pull back. I was like, when I'm in it, this is my spring and summer. This is my follicular, my ovulatory energy. And then I need, the reason the luteal phase, the waning moon phase, is my favorite, which is what we're in right now as we speak, is the waning moon phase, it is the soul scrub. It is what helps you get so much clarity and get so finite. And then you come into the winter, and that
resonates. Yeah.
Like, that's the ebb is a projector. So it gave me a deeper understanding, and it gave me a lot more permission. And I would say, quite honestly, that is one of the reasons why I also birthed the Audacious Woman, because in that moment of allowing myself to learn more about what it meant to be specifically an emotional projector, and my profile, my defined centers, my open centers, I was like, I deeply need and desire this as a woman. Yes. This is what my body is asking me for, to be at her best. And there's no possible way I'm the only woman who is desiring and craving this as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah, there is no possible way. And I'm always grateful for, the women who choose to go first.
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think that that's one of the things I've really come to love about you, Jenn, is you're not afraid to take the path less traveled.
Right.
And I really think that's what we're talking about today. Like, if I think about the conversation we just had, it truly is about, number one, those whispers that call us. And I think that they're often there for a long time.
Yeah.
Just as you described, they're there for such a long time. And we often don't have the spaces in our life, in our day, to pay attention and to listen and to tune in. But those whispers, I think, are the things that call us to those paths less traveled. And for me, energetically, I've always been drawn to women who choose the paths less traveled. Like, there's something so bold and so audacious and so courageous about being willing to go first.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think it's what I know for me as a woman, it's what I desired that I did not have around me for the first 3/4 of my career. All my mentors were men. I was looking everywhere to see, like, where is the other woman, the mom that, like, seriously, like, am I the only one? Do I have to forge this path? And now, like, there's so many women that are leading forward with it. Thank goodness. It is one thing I'm very grateful for in terms of, Instagram and platforms, is you can witness it now.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it wasn't there. And so I really try to live my life in a way where I don't want to continue to grow older in my life and look back on all the things I wished I had tried. I'm not afraid to fail. I fail all the time. The thing that actually scares me the most is that I don't live the life that I've been given as a gift, is that I don't try. And it's like, I'd rather have this tiny little list of, like, all the things I did perfectly, and then this huge ass list of, like, all the adventures and the things I tried. And I don't know. It's just, for me, I always ask, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Can you, as we wrap up, I'd love for you to share, for a woman who is listening, I think many of my listeners are practitioners, they're coaches, they're entrepreneurs, clinicians. They're in some sort of a service-based industry, right? Like, they're serving, they're mission focused. Women is how I describe my audience. For the woman that's listening, that can hear this whisper, that can feel the stirring, that knows that she's being called, she's being drawn to something different. Like, there's some sort of energetic shift happening for her. And she's afraid. Like, she's so afraid. I was having a conversation actually with a woman the other day, and she's like, I'm just so afraid of not doing it the way I've always been taught to do it. Because what if it doesn't work? And I said, but what if it does? Like, what if it does?
What if this is the thing? Like, what if this is the catalyst to that next vibration and level in your body and your life that you have been desiring? Are you prepared to sit on your hands because you are afraid it's not going to work out to what you think and not even try? And that's the whole thing, is that is how I move through life. It's like, I'm just like, well, let's just throw this on the wall. Let's just see. Like, I'm not a very detail oriented person. I'm an activator, and I'm a visionary. It can be harder for me to land the plane. So if you want ideas, I can go ideas all day long. But then I've built my team to help me with the people who are detail oriented to anchor that stuff down.
Right.
And for me, it's like, I'm like, okay, here's this idea. I just want to try this thing. Let's just do it. Let's throw it out there. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. And sometimes it flops and it's like, okay, well, so we won't do that again. And sometimes it's great. And I'm like, amazing. Okay, I'm going to go a little deeper with this. So my whole thing is, like, I go wide in life with what I'm willing to try. So I have a very, like in investing, it would be like, what's your, your ability to, are you like conservative, aggressive, like that kind of, I'm like, let's just go on. Let's go all in. Right. Like, but my depth is when I know I'm on the path and something is like, oh yeah, like it's a yes, I will go deep in there. I don't spread my energy wide to a million different things. And I give my energy to nothing that does not light me up anymore. I literally just can't do it. I will get sick. So I just go deep on those things in the center. And so I would say, as a practitioner, if you come away from this episode today with one thing, I want to remind you, your service you offer is not your gift. You are. You are. So you have to detach yourself from the logical, intelligent brain credential accolade side of what you have achieved and what you know, and you have to start to lead forward with who you are. The reason someone is coming to you and not the other person, and the reason they keep tapping back in and watching your stories and paying for your services and all of that, has nothing to do with the service itself. It has to do with something you are delivering. And if you can't sit there and figure out what that thing is, you have to start to ask your community, why do you enjoy working with me? What is it about the work that we do? Do a little bit of research and development about yourself. Do research and development about who you are in the company, your brand, all of that, to help to create, like, this is what I'm going through right now, is a reinvention. I don't know exactly what the branding and imaging is going to look like yet, but I am just feeling my way forward into it. That's what I would recommend as a practitioner.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That's, and for those listening, like, I would highly, highly encourage you to find Jenn. She's going to tell us in a moment how we can find her, but go and find her on the platforms. She shows up consistently. She shows up powerfully. She shows up authentically. Like, you're such a great example, Jenn, of someone who truly is leading by example. And I'm so grateful for this conversation.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to have been a guest on here. And I love anytime you and I get to connect. And I would say, Jenn, like at Jenn Pike, Instagram is a great place to be, but please go follow me at The Audacious Woman. I promise I will start showing up there and having these conversations. And then on my podcast, the Simplicity Sessions. So I'm really starting to pull, actually, as we are recording this today, an episode went live all about like what us as projectors would love other people in our life to know about us. And I tether in all the things that I love to teach and talk about. So I think everyone can find something for themselves there.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Jenn, thank you so much.
Thank you.